I'm Tracy. I am so excited to be here. This is like coming home. I've been to many DjangoCons over the years, and over the last few years, I've been lucky to speak at a few DjangoCons, and now I'm here keynoting, and my heart is so full. I'm so excited to be here. I put daring, not darling, because if you wanted to contact me, I generally recommend to do it via Twitter, or you can email me. And back in the day when I was like, I'm going to use the username Lime Daring, everyone in the world, including myself, constantly mixes it up with Lime Darling. So I put that up there at the very beginning, let you know, my mistake, but FYI, I'm Lime Daring on the internet. So you might know of my books. Who here knows of my books? Is it pretty good to? Yeah, I'm a big deal. I wrote these, I self-published them, I designed them, which is pretty awesome. Kicking the laptop, don't do that. These are my books to introduce people to Django, largely the way that I introduced myself to Django. And I wanted to, I fell in love with Django as a web designer, started a startup, and decided to write these books to try to help more people to get into them. And it's been Kickstarted. Thank you to anyone in the audience. If you are part of those Kickstarter campaigns, thank you so much for supporting me. If you bought the book, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm in the process of writing a third book. FYI, that's if you've Kickstarted this third book, it's teaching design for programmers. I will hopefully have an update very, very soon. I was hoping to have an update by now, but long story short, I don't have the release date. It's either going to be September or October. But FYI, there's a third Kickstarter campaign. Thank you to anyone who also backed that one. Now back to Hello Web App. FYI, if you didn't know, because I'm working on this design book, Hello Web App, I took all the text and I put it on the website. The entirety of the book is on the website, free online. So if you know of anyone who wants to learn more about Django or wants another resource for learning Django, you want to try something else out, and you want to look at Hello Web App, it is free. Please use it. You can still buy the paperback if you want. There's still videos. You can buy Intermediate Concepts, the second book. But the first book is online for anyone to use it. And please do. That's why I do what I do. Just FYI, this is the other thing that I usually do. I've written books. I also run this startup. I'm not actually making money on it. It's a whole other long story right now. But I have 3 people working under me that are being paid, and it's awesome, full-time employees. And this is the startup I've been running for, say, the last 7 or so years. It's really cool to be back here at DjangoCon, because DjangoCon 2011 is when I first taught myself Django to launch what would turn into Wedding Lovely today. And I did a talk. This is my first talk ever at a conference, which is cool. 6 years later, I went from talk to keynote, which is, first talk to keynote at the same conference. Really, really awesome to be back here. Check out my hair. This recent haircut, they cut off way too much, and so I'm really salty about my short hair right now. And I looked at this and I was like, ah. Last but not least, I do a lot of conference speaking now. This is my first keynote at Fluent, and it's a big deal when they have a giant projection of your face behind you. That's cool. And I spoke at DjangoCon Europe earlier this year, along with a bunch of other conferences. So that concludes the portion of my talk of, here's why I'm awesome. And I'm kind of like a motivational speaker, which is funny because when I was a kid, I saw a lot of motivational speakers coming to my high school, and I was just like, I want to be you. And they were just like, my life is awesome, and here's how your life can be awesome, which is kind of what I'm doing here. But the thing is, when you're watching these motivational speakers, this is what I was, an introvert, high anxiety, very, very shy kid. You see these motivational speakers, and I wanted to be them, but there was this little voice in my head. It was like, I can't follow their advice, because with these motivational speakers, these people they know what they're doing, and they're always like that. Those kids in grade school, those awesome kids that know what they're doing, and they're just super ambitious and outgoing. And you're like, oh yeah, this motivational speaker, they've always been like that. They were those kids. Time's up, I'm gone. So, when you see these motivational speakers and they're like, oh yeah, here's all this advice, and you might be thinking, oh yeah, that advice does not apply to me because I don't fit that mindset. I'm not outgoing like them. I can't self-promote like them because I'm an introvert and they're an extrovert. Like, I have anxiety. You might think, I have anxiety, and the advice does not apply to me. The advice I have in this talk, I'm going to kind of go over my life because I am not an extrovert. I might come up here and I sound like I know what I'm doing, and that's been like 5 years of really hard work to get to this point. It's been really, really hard to get to this point. I was a really screwed up kid. I had a lot of issues talking to people. I had a lot of bad thoughts about other people. I didn't trust strangers. I didn't trust people. I'll get into that story in a second. And I wanted to start this talk out with this huge disclaimer of my life. It's like, I'm going to go into these like, oh yeah, here's some things you can do to improve your career and become more outgoing. And it's not because I've always been outgoing myself. Like, these are things that literally helped me get over these issues I had growing up. So it's taken a lot of work to get to where I am right now. It's taken a lot of shortcuts. I've had to figure out a lot of tactics in order to get myself to be comfortable on stage, to be comfortable running a startup and fundraising the startup and writing a book and self-promoting that book. There's a lot of things I've learned over the last few years that have gotten to me to this point. That's taken me from this really shy, messed up kid to where I am right now. So yeah, I'm gonna go into my little background story, let you know how I came here. When I was 2, my parents divorced, and I was like 2-ish. But for me, basically, my parents were never a unit. They were always separate people, lived in separate houses. And when they divorced, the courts at the time in the 80s, it's mother and father. My dad was a wonderful, stable person, very wonderful person. My mom, while she loved me very much, was an alcoholic with substance issues. And unfortunately, the courts at the time favor the mother. So my dad had the choice of either losing custody of me entirely and me living with my mom, or to do this system of 1 year, 1 year off. 1 year with my dad, 1 year with my mom, 1 year with my dad, 1 year with my mom, and that was the best deal that my dad could get. So that was my life growing up. I was moving constantly, and it wasn't like my mom stayed in the same town. Because of her issues, we moved at least every year, sometimes multiple years. So, growing up, it was going to my mom's in a new district. I lived all over the California Bay Area, constantly new schools, new friends, new bedroom, me and my suitcase, being transferred between parents in a McDonald's parking lot in Vallejo. The strange thing is with my mom, it was always a new school year, a new school district, and new friends. But it was actually harder going back to my dad's because he was in the same place, and I would go back to the school I was before, and all my friends from that 2 years before, everyone in the school knew who I was, but all of my friends had moved on. And so I had to remake new friends with this really weird, knowing but not knowing. People had moved on and became comfortable. For my mom, those years, I was the new kid and people would seek me out. With my dad, I wasn't. I just wanted to bring this picture up because I'm legit cowboys in my family. That's me and my dad. So when I was 12, things were getting worse and worse and worse for me. As I was growing up, it became harder for me to every year go out and make new friends and start in a new school. So at 12, I was back at my dad's, and I just gave up. I decided I was not going to have friends anymore. It was just too hard. And also, you're 12, they're going through a lot of issues, and I just couldn't handle it, and I couldn't handle people, and I distrusted everyone. I had this like mentality that all these kids in the school hated me, and so why should I be friends with them? And I would spend my lunches in this little corner of the quad, like in this doorway of a teacher, and I remember her bringing me in and asking me, like, Tracy, do you have friends? Which is like, lady, isn't that obvious? Like, why am I here? Like, I probably was like, yeah, of course I do. Can I go back to eating my lunch alone now? About 6 months in, this one girl like took pity on me, and I remember her coming up to me and being like, Tracy, we are your friends. And I'm like, no, you're not, which is weird to respond with. And she's like, no, really, we're your friends. Like, stop doing whatever you're doing. And that little fantasy as kids do is they're walking together, and you always think to yourself, oh, if I stop, everyone's just going to keep on walking, and no one's, they don't even notice I'm there. And I would do that multiple times, and they would always turn around and be like, Tracy, come on, what are you doing? So like 6 months of giving up, 6 months of this one girl deciding to make me her project and to reintroduce me into having friends. But this mental feeling about people, about distrust of strangers, of like this, how hard it is to make friends, of getting into groups and being completely scared and just shutting down. This is something I still struggle with to this day. High school was better for me. Well, at the end of that 12 years old, end of my 7th grade, I told my parents I was not going to move anymore, which is a really shitty thing for a kid to have to do, to tell their mom and their dad. Like, tell your mom, I'm not going to live with you anymore. I'm going to live with my dad. It was rough. But as soon as I stopped moving, I went from a D student to an A student. I started to get friends in high school. I was with the Misfits, listened to Tool, we played Dungeons & Dragons. High school was actually a really cool time for me. But moving to university, leaving all this group of people that I had collected, these people I felt safe with. University, my first year, was just right back to my 12-year-old self. I went back to not trusting people, not making friends. And yet another year went with me not really making friends. I made one friend that year on my dorm room, like my next door neighbor. And we ended up living together the second year. And the second year I started making my friends of my own. And she came up to me, and I was going out for like the first time. And she's like, Tracy, you made friends. And she was like so happy for me because she knew how hard it was for me to like go out there and like meet people. So these issues were already in my head, stuck in my head, this distrust of other people. I got walloped by another life event in this time. Like I said, my mom was an alcoholic with substance issues, and the alcoholism was slowly killing her during this time. In high school, it was, she'd be in the hospital every now and then. In university, she was in the hospital a lot more than just every now and then. So my times in university was constantly going up, and mom's in the hospital again. We found out from the neighbors that she was taken away in an ambulance, and it was, rough to say the least. And then my dad, my wonderful, wonderful dad, had originally diagnosed with melanoma in high school, and I didn't know what that meant and never really paid attention. And when I was 21, the melanoma came back. And my mom was still alive at this point. This is not my mom, this is my stepmom. When I was 21, he was re-diagnosed with melanoma in May, and he died in September. And this is actually 5 days before he died. It was on his birthday. My birthday is September 10th. His birthday is September 8th. So we got together for my birthday. And it was all like, oh, you're beating the cancer. It's awesome. Like, we're going to have our birthday together like we usually do. And the next day, it just went downhill, and he died on September 13th. And my mom was still alive, but not barely so. And then the next year and a half later, we became estranged. I stopped talking to her. I didn't see her for 6 months before she died. So I was 22. And the years of 22 to 25, I was in and out of deep depression. These social anxiety issues transformed into panic attacks to the point of where when a panic attack would happen, I would actually start physically hurting myself. Because when your emotional pain is so great, what can you do then cause physical pain to distract yourself from emotional pain? And I've dug myself into this really, really deep hole. And it's really strange looking at myself now at 32, turning 33 in a month, that less than 10 years ago, I was a completely different person. I had so many problems, like these problems of talking to people, these problems of being social, problems of having confidence in myself. It's this deep hole that I was in that I had to slowly start like climbing out of, because I still knew that I liked to build things. I wanted to build things for other people to use. And this process, I knew I needed to get out of that hole in order to be up here, to be giving a keynote. And so I know all these like tips I give you where I'm just like, oh yeah, go out and negotiate, spoiler alert, go out and do these things. I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is. This is the things I've been trying to overcome over the last few years. And FYI, I'll remind you at the end, if you are going through issues like this yourself and you need someone to talk to, please email me. I'd love to help people out if you have anxiety issues, you have panic attacks and whatnot. Like, I've been there and I want to help out. So climbing out of this hole, being an advocate for yourself, like having to take life by the reins and jump off that cliff and do things that are scary. These are like the top tips that I've learned over the last few years that have helped me go from that person, what I was before, to now. Disclaimer, advice is not one size fits all. The things that I mentioned here are not going to apply unilaterally to everyone in this audience. My goal is that there's going to be one thing. They're like, I can use that one thing to improve my life or career. So FYI, if this doesn't apply to you, I totally understand. It's me. This is things that worked out for my life. I really hope that at least one thing works out for you. All right, tip number 1. The worst they can say is no. Let's talk about the scariest moment in my career. In university, I started working at a startup. And it wasn't like, oh, a startup approached me, like, oh, we're a startup. It was like guys in a garage, and they're like, hey, we're building this website. We need a designer. Do you want to come work with us? I'm like, sure. So we went down to that website and started hacking, down to that garage and started hacking together, which is pretty cool, like legit startup. And this was really fun. We went from the garage. I graduated university, and they had moved up to the Bay Area, turned into, from this like garage, bunch of dudes in a garage to like an actual company in the Bay Area. And I started working with them full time as a designer. And I ended up working with them for about 4.5 years. And it was just like, these are my friends. Like, these are people, like, we're going to build this website, this collection of websites. It was an online education lead gen company, which is kind of weird, FYI. Not the sexiest thing to be in, but it was really cool to be with bunch of these guys. And we're like, we're going to work on this together. We're going to build it up. Look how far we have come. We're all going to be walking away with from this with buckets of money. So, like I said, I worked them for 4.5 years in total. Around the 4th year, I met my future husband. Aww. And he kind of changed my life in funny ways. Not just the obvious, like, oh yeah, we got married type ways. So if anyone knows Andre, so Andre is the author of Eurolib 3. He's a Pythoner as well. Eurolib 3 is used in requests and pip and all that kind of stuff. So Andre, when I first met, if you know him, this is very typical for him. Somehow in our first date, he wiggled out of me that what I was doing, what my job was, and how much I was being paid, which is a really weird thing to be talking about on your first dates. But this is totally normal for Andre. And he was like, you are being underpaid. I originally started this job at $40K a year because, we're a startup, 40K, this is all we can do. And then every year at my review, they'd always be like, you're awesome, 10% raise, this is the max we can do, and you got it. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm awesome. So I think when I met him, I was at 53,000, and I was just like, yeah, I'm making 53. And he's like, you are being underpaid. I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, yes, you are. And I'm like, it's a startup. And he's like, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, they can't afford more. And he's like, of course they can. And then I had litany, all these excuses. And so our dating kind of turned into meeting him for coffee, and we'd walk around the suburbs behind the coffee shop, and I would just give him all the excuses about why I shouldn't ask for a raise, and he would just refute every single one of them. Yeah, true love, right? And somehow, over this time, he broke down all of my excuses about why I shouldn't ask for a raise, why I was actually not, I was being legit underpaid. And he convinced me I needed to go. I have 53. My yearly review is coming up very soon. So at 53,000, he convinced me I needed to go in there and ask for a raise to 90,000. That is a gigantic jump. And still to this day, I have no idea how he convinced me to actually ask for that, because I think that's still scary for me now to go that amount of money. So I went into that interview and just shaking in my boots. I am just oh, I am going to get fired. I am breaking all the rules that are set by, companies for employees. And of course, in that review, they were the same thing before. Oh, Tracy, 10% raise, you're awesome. Congratulations, you can leave now. And I was well, I did some research, and I think I'm actually I think the raise was going to be to 60,000 or something like that. I was I should be paid 85. Now notice I said 85, not 90, the number he convinced me. And I went back to Andre afterwards, and I was oh, I said 85. And he was I knew you would. That's why I said 90, because you were going to undercut yourself. This is Andre. This is so him. So I said 85, and my boss's faces went white, and they're you need to leave now. Not quit, I wasn't fired just yet, but they're you need to leave this office, and we need to deliberate about this. And so I went back to my desk, and I was just oh my God, I am so fired. And not less than a half an hour later, they called me back into their office, and they said, well, we can't do 85, but we can do 82. Which is they're going to offer me 60, and then it went up to 82, and I'm just of course I took it. 55% raise. Wow. Less than an hour later, I started doing this. And I was wait, that was too easy. They knew they were underpaying me. That's why it was so easy to get that raise. They knew that they're underpaying me. And there was no reason for them to ever pay me a market salary, even though they obviously could, until I asked for it. This was a nuclear explosion in my brain. My whole world turned upside down. Learned a very valuable lesson about working in a company is that there was no reason to pay me more unless I asked for it. And things like the max 10% raise are just there by a company to, stop you from asking for more, prevent you from asking more. And thank goodness that Andre came along and helped me out with that. This was such a transformative time in my career to realize that it was up to me to know what I'm worth. It was up to me. I couldn't rely on this company, these friends that I was working with, these buckets of money that we were all promised each other. I couldn't rely on other people to know what I was worth and pay me that. And it taught me that I need to ask for it. And this is super scary. I would much rather just be working at a company and know that I was being taken care of. But you can't trust on that. And I understand as a business person. I run Wedding Lovely. I have full-time employees under me. And I totally understand the whole oh crap, I hope they don't ask for a raise because the company is stretched really thin. I understand it from a business perspective too. I know why they did that. But it taught me that as an employee, I also had to be in charge of myself. So, how do you know how much you're worth? How do you know to take these steps? Other than me being up here, being hey, now you know the secret. Pro tip number 2, build a support network. Can't just do this alone. There's Andre. Yeah. I wish I could be I am a woman, I did this all on my own, but no, I took another person, took this, this awesome dude to tell me that I needed to take these steps. I'm glad that he came in my life and like decided to pry so early on in our dating life to like help me take this big step, and this one step of this like led to me being here running my own business. Like learning this lesson of having to ask and having to like take charge of myself was really crucial for me. I just wanted to like bring up some resources. Like if you don't have, Andre in your life, some of you do, actually. But if you don't have Andre in your life, there's a lot of things on the internet that help you build this support network. The people out there who are totally happy to like second chest, you can say, here's how much I'm being paid. Here's how much I think I'm going to be worth. People can help you out. People can say, yes, that's the right instinct. That's the wrong instinct. There's email lists. There's Slack groups like DjangoCon. You have to take that step of asking for help. I saved this one that was on an email list where someone just says, hey, I got this job. I think the salary is great. Should I negotiate? Spoiler, always negotiate. Like, this is a very easy question to respond to. Like, even if this, like, your initial offer is awesome, you should still ask for a little bit more. And that's what the people said in this email list. They were able to help out this person and give them the advice that they needed to take that step that would potentially affect their career for pretty much the rest of their life. In terms of knowing how much you're worth, obviously, look at salary aggregators. And there's things like salary.com, payscale.com, glassdoor.com. I wish I did that when I was at this company, and I would have realized how underpaid I was. I mean, I would have still had those other excuses, like, oh, we're a startup. Oh, we can't afford it. That required another person to be like, oh, yeah, they can. But it would have been good to at least know what other people were getting paid. And there's actually, this was a couple years ago, this got really big. It's died down since then, but it's still happening. People on Twitter and other social media networks talking pay, talking salaries, the talk pay hashtag. And FYI, you can talk to your coworkers about salary. If you're under the impression that it is illegal or against the rules, or it's in your employee handbook where it says, hey, you can't talk to your coworkers about your salary, all those are just things made up by the company to prevent you from talking to each other and then asking for more. It's not illegal. You totally can talk, and you should talk. Talk to your coworkers. Make sure you're on even footing. And don't wait until you're unhappy to become informed. Like, you could be like, when I was at that company, I was totally happy. And like, I would have just continued on as I was until this other person let me know where I actually was positioned. So it's worth, even if you're happy of where you are, do some research. Make sure that you are indeed being paid, and then you're able to ask. That asking part is the hard part. I found this yesterday and immediately put it into this. So what you do if you're in a, yeah, right? Yeah, what you do if you're in a job interview? Pro tip number B.1, always be beeping. Get real poofy. There's a couple books that really did change my life during this time as well. And I know this is a controversial book. I know there's a lot of people out here who don't like this book. I loved it. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it and make your own decision. I think Lean In is a really, really good book. And it helped me take those steps of leaning in and then asking and doing negotiation or figuring out where I was in terms of my career and salary and being able myself to make those changes. I totally believe that we can, as women, try to change the world in terms of how it is, like the culture, change the culture together, while also being advocates for ourselves. And this book is a really great book for helping you learn to be an advocate for yourself. And this book is magical. If you have not read this book, you should read it. It is great. It is well written. It is a great story and has such great lessons. Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer, or How I Stopped Worrying and Let People Help. When you have this support network, building the support network and people, who are there to help you, you have to let them help you. And that sometimes can be a really, really hard thing to do. When it comes to feeling confident enough to ask for things, or taking that step of putting myself out there and asking for something I need, something that's helped is practice asking for small things. And there's a lot of weird marketers out there who talk about this, like asking for, I don't know, you know what I'm talking about, people who kind of break the rules, and they'll try to get something that benefits them, but hurts. I'm thinking of Tim Ferriss and the Sumer, I don't know, some Tim Ferriss things you might know what I'm talking about, where they're like, yeah, you can totally take the world, and then they're kind of being scumbags. Don't be evil. When I try to find small things to ask for in my day-to-day life, I try to find things that benefit me as well as the person whom I'm asking. For example, airplanes. I take a lot of flights. I spoke at 17 conferences last year, which was pretty baller, and so therefore I was on a plane a lot. And about 1/10 of the planes I am on, I'm actually not on the plane that I booked, because let's say you're here and your plane is leaving at 5 p.m. and the hotel is kicking you out at 11. So you just go to the airport with your computer and you're like, oh, I'll just work until my plane takes off. You get to the airport and there's another flight going to your destination leaving earlier in the day. And you probably saw it when you're booking the flights, and it was probably more expensive, which is why you booked the later one. But now you're at the airport, there's a flight leaving earlier. Walk up to the desk and ask if they can put you on that flight. It works all the time. Oh my gosh, seriously do this. It's in the airline's incentive to put you on an earlier flight if they have room, because that means the later flight, something could go wrong. They want to have more seats in that later flight just in case. It doesn't hurt them really to put you on that earlier flight. And of course it benefits me, because now I'm in an earlier flight going home way earlier on a flight that's probably more expensive to book, but I don't have to pay anything more. Some of the big carriers, American, Delta, United, sometimes will ask you to pay an extra change fee, and about 50% of the time, I'll okay, change fee, all right, I'll do it. About 50% of the time, they're waive that for you. It's totally worth asking. It is a really cool, if you're traveling a lot and you see that opportunity, you can ask and see if they'll move you to the other flight. And the worst thing they can say is no. So that's one of the ways, that's something I practice doing whenever I'm flying, and I try to look for other opportunities for me to, really promote myself, take advantage of the system, but in a way, if I can ask for ways that'll improve my life, that also, works out in the other person's favor. Look for those opportunities. The other thing that helps me with asking for things that will benefit me, is I'll think about what's the worst case scenario. And you have to think about this logically, because the worst case scenario could be, oh, a meteor is going to fall from the sky, and then it's going to smush me, and then the world's going to explode. And you can go really far with the worst case scenario. Dial it back. Think logically. What's the actual worst case scenario? Back to the whole salary negotiation thing. The way I look at it for salary negotiation is that there is about a 25% chance. These are all guesses, but this is how I really think this is pretty accurate. My feelings are. There's about 25% chance of them just being sure. 1 in 4 chance of them being okay, cool, we can do that number. And there's a larger chance, there's a 50% chance that they'll negotiate back. They'll say, let's meet in the middle, like that company did for me. They don't want to just the people I used to work with are master negotiators, so of course they'll never take my offer. They always try to save face by cutting me down and be 52 or 82, and I'm okay. People are usually going to meet you in the middle. But that leaves it's a 3/4, 75% chance of getting a better offer than we had before. So I'm that's a risk I totally can take, 75% chance of getting a higher offer. But of course, there's some negatives. There's say a 1 in 5 chance of them just saying no, which puts you right back to where you were before. So, that's a 90% chance of either making a higher salary or nothing happening. And then there's the worst case scenario. What is the worst case when it comes to a job offer or a salary offer? And the worst case could be they're no, and we're taking the offer away. It's scary if someone says, okay, I'm offering this job for $50,000. You're actually 55. There's a chance they're just you know what, we don't want to work with you anymore. And that's really scary. You don't want that job offer to go away. And that's what stops a lot of people from taking that step in negotiation. So the thing that reassures me in that case is, would I really want to work for a company with that attitude? It'd be better to suss that out, that they have that attitude about money earlier on than later. So that's kind of how I look at things in life in general. I try to really think about, what are the chances of something going right for me? What are the chances of something going wrong? What's that worst case scenario? And if that worst case scenario happened, how would I react to it? So with salary negotiation, it's all positives. It's either going to be a no, a yes, and if it's a horrific response, like they rescind the offer, I don't want to work with them anyways. And so that reassures me and helps me take that really scary step of asking for more money. Some general negotiation / asking tips. Really quickly, if you're negotiating money, this works for salaries. This works if you have a company and you're raising money. Try not to give the first number yourself. Let the other person do the number. Resist the urge. They're like, oh, what were you making in your last job? Be like, I don't think that's relevant, or something. Try not to give that number. They're trying to get you to say your number so they can be like, hey, we gave you a 5% boost. Whereas if you didn't give a number, they might have given you a 10 to 15%. And in any asking situation, when you're asking for money, fundraising, asking to switch planes, how to switch planes, don't undercut yourself. Keep the request brief. I have a tendency to babble. I try not to do that. Or it's just like you're asking for earlier flight, and you're like, I see there's this flight open, and I have an important thing at home and this meeting I need to get to, and so I was kind of hoping that you can move me to this earlier flight because that would be really awesome. It would help my cat or something like that. You just keep going. It's much better just to be like, I see there's a flight available. I'm on the later flight. Is there any way I can be on this earlier flight? And stop. Or, thank you for your offer of $80,000. I think I'm worth $85,000. Stop. Don't babble. I can go on for ages about this. Ask me more about it later. In general, negotiation does not mean you're a mean person or selfish. You're just asking for something better. And this reassures me when I need to take that step and ask for more. This is why I love DjangoCon. That support network, the people out there that can help you make these asks or tell you where you are in terms of salary or career. This is such a great place to meet other people. That leads me into my next big tip, because if you're someone with anxiety or social anxiety, or me, walk into a room of strangers and your brain is yelling at you like, these people are my enemies and they all hate me. If you're like me, it's really, really scary to come into a place like this. My next pro tip is to make one meaningful connection at events. You don't have to meet everybody, just make one. My very first conference ever was South by Southwest in 2008. This is deep into my being scared about people phase. And someone had told me, a mentor when I was in school told me that if I wanted to make it into tech, I needed to go to South by Southwest. And I went to this job that the whole story about money was from. And none of them were really interested in going out and meeting other people. I asked them, I was like, oh, there's this conference. And they're like, we're not doing that. And I took the really scary step, of deciding to take that person's advice, bought the plane ticket, bought the hotel room, and I flew to South by Southwest knowing no one. And that first conference was largely me walking into an after party, seeing everyone in little groups, talking to each other, going, ha, and then running away. I was like, everyone is talking to each other. I can't jump into those groups. Everyone has their friends, and I'm here on my own, and so I just sit in my hotel room. On the plane back, I go into the sessions. I still had a good time. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was largely alone for the entire event. On the plane back, found some people who were at South by Southwest, and we're going back to the same area, which is kind of cool. And we got to talking, and we became friends on the plane. And those people in the Bay Area, from then, I met more people, and then I met more people. And it's like a direct line from those people in that plane to where I am right now in my career. Just person to person to person to event to event to event. meeting those people just like changed my career. I still have anxiety at events, and there's a few things that I use nowadays to help me, walk into that crowded after-party room where everyone's talking to each other and go out and try to make that connection, see if there's that person in there that's going to change my career in my life. This is what I did earlier on. I haven't done this in a few years. Earlier on, Andre, same dude that I talked about before, we would go to a lot of events in the Bay Area, a lot of tech events that are there, and we would kind of turn it into a game. So instead of walking to a room and being like, okay, now I need to go mingle for 30 minutes, and you don't really have a purpose, we didn't have rules. There wasn't any you have to talk to this many people. There was nothing set in stone. But the agreement was that we would split up, not be with each other, because sometimes that's kind of hand-holding, holding me back with meeting people. We would split up, talk to people, and then when we came back, we had to tell each other who we met and why they were cool. And changing it from this weird, meaningless activity of walking to a room and just trying to chat people for a half an hour before you can leave, turning that from that to, okay, I need to go meet someone, and then, because I'm going to have to report back to Andre, and then we're going to split up again and go meet another person, and then come back together. It just switched something in my brain. It made it easier for me to just walk up to people and be like, hey, I'm Tracy, nice to meet you, because I had to do that. It was more of a game instead of just this weird, social activity. And it really helped me, get the confidence to start breaking into groups of people and just, saying my name and meeting them. And this is what I do nowadays. This is this social anxiety. I was at PHP Tech earlier this year, and I've been doing all these conferences. I think I've come so far in my life. And PHP, I don't know PHP. It was a completely new environment for me. Didn't have any friends there. And I did that thing where I walked into the after party, and I was like, oh my God, there's all those feelings again. They haven't gone away. In that case, what I do nowadays is again, instead of just meaningless activity of going into a room of people and trying to meet people and not having a purpose, I tell myself that I cannot leave until I've made one meaningful connection. It's not just meet 5 people or just talk to 5 people. In one meaningful connection might sound a little scary, because you might be like, oh, I could talk to 10 people and they can all suck. But I find that just one person, and it's actually easier when I do it. It's actually easier to meet someone where I'm like, oh, I'm glad I met that person. And then I'm like, cool, I can leave now. I made that one connection. But it's changed events for me. It's made it so I continue to network even when I'm feeling scared, when I give networking events a little bit more purpose. The last thing that really helps me out with events is it's really hard nowadays, I really try to tell myself that 99% of people are awesome. Now, that's a really big number. You might be like, I looked at Twitter today, and it's pretty obvious that people are not awesome. 1% of people is actually a pretty big number. It took me forever on the plane to draw, even though it's just happy faces. And the person next to me is like, what is she doing? But, there's say 350 people here. I think that's how many people are at DjangoCon. That leaves 3.5 people who suck. So I'm sorry if that's you. Let me know. But that also leaves over 300 people who are awesome. And when I look at Twitter and there's people, I know that social media amplifies negative, horrible people. I just try to tell myself that they are being amplified, and that the vast majority of people in the world are people just trying to make their way, that are nice people. They don't have to agree with me. We can have completely different values, but they can still be an awesome person. It makes it easier for me to be around people. It makes events less scary. I have to really, really internalize this, that people are going to be more good than bad. Because I'm fighting against that brain instinct that people hate me. Non-tech ways, there's been a really big non-tech way that helped me renew my faith in people. I do a lot of outdoorsy. Hello. Bad speaker. Turn your phone off. All right, it's on silent now. All right, I do a lot of outdoorsy events. A few years ago, I decided to hey, run away from tech. I'll get into that in a second. Run away from tech and do the John Muir Trail in California. It's 200-something miles, and did it by myself because I couldn't find anyone else who was willing to go run around for 3 weeks in the wilderness with me. And I was like, that's not going to stop me. I really got to get away from the computer, so I'm just going to go do this hike. And a lot of people are like, whoa, you did that on your own? You did that on your own as a woman? Like, wasn't that scary? You know, you look at, that's the movie Wild. Yes, I've seen it. I've seen the movie Wild. I've read the book. It kind of drives me nuts. I actually do not like the book. I don't know. I feel like you talk to me about it later. I had a great experience. People on the trail became my family. People found out that I was on my own, and without me asking, people were trying to take care of me. People were checking up on me. I felt so safe on this trip. It was amazing. These are some people I met on the trail when I was there. These are my besties. You know, this is 2 weeks in too, which is kind of cool. Like, the thing with backpacking is that say you're at a restaurant here and you see a group of people at a table, you can't just like sit down next to them and be like, hey, I'm Tracy. They'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you in my seat? But with backpacking, when you're on like a long trip like this, Pacific Crest Trail, anything, you walk into a restaurant, you see a group of backpackers all sitting around a table, and you can tell who they are because they're the ones who are really dirty and stinky. And you just like walk up to them, sit down, being dirty and sneaky yourself, and be like, hi, I'm Tracy. And they're like, hey, how's it going? And you just like make new friends. And that's what I did the entire trail as a solo person. I just like went from table to table, meeting people, walked with people some days, camped with people other days, and like really got over that fear of just like meeting strangers and then trusting them. And in backpacking world is a little bit different than the real world, because again, you can't do that, really. But this is one of those things that kind of really helped me become more outgoing. And like I said, remember that social media makes awful people like more common. I try to tell myself that anything awful I see on social media, there's that 1% of people that I don't like, and then I can move on in my life and try to reassure myself that there's still awesome people fighting those awful people. You know what I'm talking about. And it's also important, to get to this point, to be the support network for others. While finding a support network, people to help you, it's important to give back. And I don't mean that in a completely altruistic way. Selfish secrets. When you help other people, if you're helping someone with negotiation and you're telling them, hey, don't take that first offer, you can always negotiate more. When I give that advice, it makes it more likely for me to take that advice later. Like, I help people, I'm totally selfish. I help people to help myself out in the future. It helps remind me the things I need to do. When someone's button's on the line when it comes to negotiation, it's totally easy for me to give them the advice they need to hear. And the more I give that advice, it is easier for me to take it down the line. So of course, help people, become the support network for others, because that's what you should do, and be good people and help each other out. But if you also want another reason to do so, remember that helping people to code, helping people with support questions, helping someone negotiate a job offer is going to improve yourself as well. Last but not least, take breaks as needed. There is this weird stigma against people taking breaks. I was talking to Kim, and you're saying you're taking your first vacation soon after a year, and I was like, hells yes, because that's what we need to do. We need to you can just run away and take a huge break and turn off tech and don't worry about people judging you. When I did the John Muir Trail, I was actually in the middle of fundraising for my startup. That's kind of the worst situation to run away from tech. But also for my mental health, it's when I really did need to run away because, oh my God, fundraising is awful. So I was like, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't announce it on Twitter. I didn't do anything. I put Andre on my email to respond to me if someone's like, hey, Tracy, where are you? Andre's like, oh, I've been here this whole time. In the meanwhile, I'm running around the wilderness for 3 weeks. I've done this a few times over the last few years. A year and a half ago, I went to a surfing retreat for 3 weeks in Costa Rica. This makes me look awesome, which is why I love this photo. But believe me, it's because I only look awesome because I'm on land. I am the worst surfer in the world. 3 weeks was not enough. Like, look at me, look how awesome I look. Yeah, there's nothing on me on a board because that doesn't exist. But this has been like key for my life, especially as I've gone like way far into the whole like I have to promote myself world by having a startup and writing books and putting myself in this situation where I just constantly have to self-promote and work against these like feelings that my brain had built up from age 0 to 26. Every now and then I get completely overwhelmed, and then I turn off all electronics and tech and computers, and not just like a week, I run off for like 3 to 4 weeks. I'm lucky that I can do that too. That's another reason why I work for myself. And even when I do this, there's always this voice in my head. It's like, what if someone judges me for walking away? Like, what if someone's like, Tracy has a book to promote, and why is she just like running around Costa Rica surfing when she really should be promoting her book? But no one does that. It's just my brain. That's just my brain yelling at me. And breaks. I do physical activities. I really like running off and doing something really physically challenging. Breaks don't have to be, I don't recommend everyone to go on the John Muir Trail. It could just be stepping away from Twitter for a little bit. Get away from negativity and the things that are going on, especially right now, which is kind of frustrating. You can step away from tech. Take the breaks that you need. Don't burn yourself out. I think we all know this, but it's still hard to do yourself. Hey, again, that selfish secret. The more I tell you to take breaks, the easier it is for me to take breaks. But seriously, step away from tech if you need a bit. Don't feel like you have to be always on all the time. It's really important for mental health, and this is something that's helped me a lot with anxiety. In conclusion, you are your own best advocate. It's awesome if the world comes together and supports you, and it happens a lot, and that's why I say 99% of people are awesome. But in the end, watch out for your own opportunities, watch out for things that you need to do. It's hard to say that you have to make that effort, especially as, like I was shy and had a lot of self-anxiety, to take that step. But really, you are your own best advocate. Take care of yourself first. Remember to ask. Ask for what you need. And the worst they can say is no. Remember, there's more awesome people than terrible. You can disagree with me. I know a lot of people do disagree with me. This is something I have to remember in order to survive, really, in this world. And I hope it helps you. I hope I can help. I truly believe this, and I hope that I can help y'all feel the same way. Build a support network. You are your own best advocate, but it's always easier to go as a group and to have a group around you. So build that support network. Ask the people. Ask for help when you need it. And be the support network. Be the support network for others. Again, it's a good thing to do just in terms of our community and our world, but also it's going to help you in the long run as well. And take breaks as needed. I talked about some of my background, and any of this talk, one of my few delights in life is when someone messages me and says, hey, that helped me. Or someone messages me and they say, hey, I have a question, or I'm going through this problem, or I just want to rant. Please, I love getting these messages. I respond to every email I get. You can DM me. My DMs are open at LimeDaring. You can email me, tracy@limedaring.com, or any of the various email addresses that are on all of my websites. I'm sure you can figure it out. But please, if you need someone to talk to, I love to help. And thank you, everyone here. It has been an honor. Thank you. All right, shush. Thank you. Last self-promotion thing because I have to do it because I'm a self-promoter. Remember, I have a book coming up called Hello Web Design. It's to help teach design to programmers. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to come out within 1 month or 2. They, like, completely out, paperback and everything. And Hello Web App, hellowebapp.com. Please use it. It's free online. You can still buy the books. You know, these are my books. I hope you read them. And thank you again.